Welcome to Reddit Tea Time. Me, 20 female, and this guy, 22 male, have been talking for a month now and finally met last week since he works out of town consistently. He was very eager to meet me. He asked me on a date and I accepted. Now, before all of this, he had asked me what I was looking for in a relationship and in a man, and I told him someone that is kind and respectful, family-oriented, empathic, etc. Also, I told him specifically what I was looking for in a man, and it was a man being able to provide for me and pay for most dates and love me unconditionally. A man who is into old school type of dating. He told me that he had similar values and that he would do all of that for me. So fast forward to the week of our date. He set a time and place and even offered to pick me up so I wouldn't have to waste gas. Day of, everything literally did not go as planned. He told me to drive to this mini golfing place and meet him there, and I became confused about this, and then he finally tells me his check engine light went on and he didn't want to drive that far, so it'll just be better to meet. I agreed because I felt bad and even offered to pick him up, but he said it was fine. We get there and tell the cashier what golf course we want, and then when it was time to pay, he just turned to me and looked at me. I honestly had a blank look on my face and he rolled his eyes and paid. It felt awkward and I wanted to leave after that, but I felt it was wrong and asked if everything was okay, and he just said yeah. Then it was time to sit down and eat. We had to download an app to order the food at this place, so we decided to both download the app to look at what we wanted on the menu. We knew what we wanted, and then it was time to pay. He finally asked me and said, "So you're gonna pay for this one, right?" I was kind of baffled and didn't know what to say. I ended up giving in and paying, but I felt so ashamed of myself. After this, we said our goodbyes and everything and left. He texted me the next day and said that it was fun hanging out and that we should do it again. I immediately blocked him and he decided to text me off Snapchat, which I forgot to block him on, and asked if he did anything wrong. I didn't even want to respond and blocked him again. It felt weird because he was the one that initiated everything. I honestly was repulsed. Now for some comments. Everyone sucks here. You told him most dates, not all. This was the first date and you didn't even offer to pay for yourself at a bare minimum. It's 2023, homegirl. You should really be ashamed for expecting a man to pay your way and for ghosting. That's children's thinking. Him? He should have been more upfront before the first date if he expected you to share the cost. I know it's a pretty common expectation that whoever did the invite pays for the date. If he expected a Dutch date, he should have said so instead of eye-rolling. You sound so dramatic, though. I don't agree with your old-school stance of expecting a guy you barely know to pay for you. However, you were honest about it before the date and you did specifically say you want the man to pay and provide for you, and he agreed to this, not the bonehead. However, when he asked if he did anything wrong, you should have been clear and told him you expected him to pay. Otherwise, he probably just thought you were joking. Not the bonehead. You told him what you wanted, he agreed, then proceeded to do the opposite. If he didn't like it, he should have said so and not asked you out on a date. I'm a father of 5 biological children and 1 adopted nephew. My 3 oldest children are adults in their 20s and have previously moved out. My youngest 2 are teenagers aged 16 and 14, and my nephew is 8. My in-laws also live with us. We have a 6-bedroom house, so each of the kids have a bedroom. My wife and I have a bedroom, my in-laws have a bedroom, and we previously had a spare bedroom for my older children to stay in when they visit. My oldest daughter moved to my home country at 18 to attend university there. She met and later married her husband, and they have an almost 4-year-old son together. Things went south in their relationship a few months ago. My daughter moved out with their son, and she was able to stay with my brother for the last few months. A couple of weeks ago, she was able to leave the country to move back home with us. My 16-year-old moved into the spare bedroom so we could turn her bedroom, that is bigger and has its own bathroom, into a room for my daughter and grandson to share. The whole family pitched in to decorate to my daughter's taste and to create a nice area for her son. When she came, she was initially grateful, but she did express not being too fond of sharing a room with her son. Last week, she suggested that my nephew and grandson could share a room instead. I told her if she was staying in my home, it would have to be in a shared room with her son. She mentioned it a few times, so I asked my nephew if he would like to share his room. His answer was that he didn't really want to, but said some nights grandson could have a sleepover in his room. Last time my daughter brought up the boys sharing a room, I was a little harsh with my tone and my wife thinks I was being a bonehead. My wife isn't completely on my side. She thinks I'm not being nice to our daughter, who is going through a tough time right now and might need some space and privacy to adjust to her whole life and future changing. She doesn't see why the boys can't share, as there's only a small age gap and our nephew would probably get used to sharing with his little cousin. Am I being the bonehead thinking my daughter should keep sharing with her son? Now for some comments. Not the bonehead. I think this is the best you could do in this situation with so many people in the house. 4 years is quite a big age difference in my opinion, particularly since they didn't grow up together, and it would be a much bigger adjustment for everyone involved than if the kid stayed with the mother for the moment. Question though, is she looking for jobs or planning to move out in the near future? Because this doesn't sound like a particularly sustainable situation. Not the bonehead. Your daughter is lucky to have a safe landing place to get herself together and work on getting a place of her own. So, is your daughter thinking that the 16-year-old can have her room back? That the 2 boys can take over the larger bedroom and she can have a smaller room with no bathroom? Or does she think the rest of the family should continue to make sacrifices for her? I think your wife is wrong. 4 adults plus 3 kids living in relative comfort still made for a lot of people living in one house. Your daughter added one of each and wants to rearrange things for her comfort. That could create a lot of resentment from others, not just your nephew. If she doesn't like living in the same room with her son, she should work hard on getting a place of her own. Not the bonehead. You already kicked out your 16-year-old from her room with an ensuite in favor of this daughter and her son, and that's not enough for her? Tell her it's time for a reality check. Go look at renting or buying somewhere else if none of this is good enough for her. Tough crap. She's being given a great gift of housing and a bunch of built-in babysitters. Don't let her crap all over the kids. Her problems can't become everyone else's. I, 38 male, have been with my husband, 31 male, for 5 years. My husband, Elliot, has always been a child at heart. He's the type of guy who loves video games and such, and that's something in common he has with my nephew Jake, 16 male. Jake is my brother's son. My brother and I aren't close. We don't match well, but still we try not to argue. Recently, my niece had her birthday party and there was a pool. This pool was really big and around 8 feet in the deepest part. Jake, along with another nephew and 2 nieces, all teenagers, were playing around, but sometimes they tend to play rough. So naturally their mother was telling them to stop or someone could get hurt. At one moment, my brother's wife was annoyed, told Jake and the kids to stop it, but minutes later he decided that it would be fun and a good idea to throw my husband into the pool. Elliot was thrown to the deepest part. He knows how to swim, but was in shock. He wasn't expecting that. Everyone thought it wasn't a big deal until he couldn't make it out of the pool. My other nephew and I got him out of the pool. He was disoriented but was mostly alright, besides the few bruises he got. I lost it and screamed at Jake, asked him if he was mentally compromised, and told him that he was out of his mind. My brother eventually told me to cut it off, that everything was alright. I told my brother, tell your son to get out of my way, I don't want to see him. But that was it. Later at night, my brother's wife came to apologize, but my father and a few members of my family think that we're making a big deal about it. Edit. I understand that most people don't get hurt by jumping in a pool, but my husband had bruises because he got pushed very hard. He bruises easily anyway, so I wasn't surprised for that. He's also been having headaches to the point that he can barely sleep. Of course he can defend himself, he just doesn't want to. He's extremely non-confrontational and kind. He just wants this to end. Now for some comments. Not the bonehead. Horseplay of that kind can easily have very serious repercussions. Your nephew had already been asked to stop by his own mother, but ignored her. He's 16 years old and old enough to know better. Not the bonehead, and you are not out of line. You should be making a big deal out of it. This is how people drown or get horrible spinal injuries. Your brother's wife is right, and your brother and family members are 100% in the wrong. The cognitive comment was problematic, but he's old enough to know better, and you were freaking out because your husband nearly drowned. Not the bonehead. A prank is only funny if both parties find it funny. Your brother is slacking on his parenting. Not the bonehead. What if he didn't know how to swim? What if he hit his head? If it's only okay because everyone is all right, then it really isn't okay at all. You're making a big deal out of it because it's a big deal and a 16-year-old should know better. At least his mother had sense enough to apologize. My girlfriend and I have been together for about 4 months. She's always talked so highly of her friends, so I was excited to meet them. It turns out they're awful people. I met them yesterday for lunch, and immediately they started teasing her for her degree choice, calling it basic, and they've never imagined her in a relationship. They then continued to leave in a few passive-aggressive comments about her looks and lack of relationship experience. My blood was boiling, but she was just smiling the whole time and not reacting to these comments in any negative way. I didn't want to ruin the meal, so I bit my tongue, but I hate these people. Once we got back to her place, I brought this up and she said, "That's just how they are. We poke fun at each other." Here's where I might be the bonehead. I refused to let that slide because they obviously were not doing it as a joke. They were just being rude. No one else poked fun at anyone but her. She got upset and told me to please stop saying mean things about her friends. They've been hanging out since middle school and I don't know them like she does. I kept insisting that I'm not being mean. They are, and she would never say any of those things to them. She was quiet for a moment and then asked me to please leave. She hasn't messaged me since. Am I the bonehead for telling my girlfriend the truth about her friends? Now for some comments. OP, this may have to be the hill that you die on if you feel that strongly that they're demeaning her and she's willing to put up with it while you're not. It's admirable that you're trying to stick up for her, and you may have been one of the first people who have cared enough about her to say something about the situation. However, blurting it out wasn't the best method of expression of your feelings. You have 4 months invested with her, and she has several years, so you'll need to determine if it's worth further investment if she's not willing to compromise on her choice of friends. Not the bonehead. OP, if you heard it, 9 out of 10, that's what it was. A bunch of mean people dumping on the one that will take it because it allows her to sit at the cool kids' table. You're not the bonehead for sticking up for her because that's what you do when you care about someone. However, if you continue to be with someone that's unwilling to not only stand up for themselves, but want anyone that calls their friends out not to do it, you're setting yourself up for failure and disappointment. It's better to walk away now as opposed to having to see and deal with it. You're too much of a person of integrity to have to deal with it. If she wants to, fine. You have the choice to save yourself before you get in too deep. Because, and I speak from experience, if they're talking about her to her face in front of you, they're gonna talk about you also to her and she won't defend you. And you don't deserve that. Not the bonehead. She needed to hear it. To be honest, she probably has never thought of that way because it's been their dynamic since middle school. She thought it was normal and just how they are. It's cognitive dissonance. You told her something that was counter to her reality. When she was quiet, then asked you to leave, you likely made something snap in her. Deep down, she knows you're right, but now she's stuck between ditching all her friends or just continuing to take it. And as a boyfriend of 4 months, it's really hard to choose you over friends she's had for years. What do you think? Please let me know in the comments below. If you like these stories, please consider subscribing. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next Reddit story. In the meantime, please take care of yourself. Bye for now.